If you were planning to run a major online assessment programme, then there are one or two things it's worth bearing in mind. The first is that some of the most successful programmes have started rather small, with a trial test and building up. The second point would be to have a look at who has rights and privilege. You need to think about that right at the beginning. You don't want a lot of people with access to editing the content or with high degrees of sort of editing power. And it's worth bearing in mind that global edit, something that can be used to change a large number of records in terms of users and content in one move, is something that should be restricted to a very small number of users. It's so easy to do a lot of damage very quickly with global edit. The other thing you can do, which helps, is to let people know that what they do on the system is recorded, is tracked. It's possible to look at a record and see what a user has done, and also to see who's changed what. And you can look in a content record and see who has changed what and when they changed it. And it's a good idea that everybody knows that. When you get into creating your tests for the first time, it's very easy to take particularly the pass rules and the categories and start to create very complicated marking schemes. What we've found in the past is that these work functionally very well, but because they've become so complicated, people can't understand them, and it starts to cause difficulties where people are asking, why have I failed? It's not obvious. Very complicated marking schemes, although they will work technically, don't always help achieve the goal of assessing people's real competence. Now, if you're running a large programme, there's a fair chance that the people who are the subject matter experts, the people who know about the content, are not going to be the ones who are going to actually edit the questions. They're going to come along later and check that the questions are right. Now, it's possible to publish previews of tests, and the only people who can see these are the people who have the preview privilege. These will be your expert reviewers, your subject matter experts. They can log in and see the test, but it's a little different to how it will actually be taken. So the questions are not randomised, they get all the questions, not just some of them, and also they have a show answer button so they can sort of cheat, and a mark button so they can see how the marks are really allocated. And that's very useful because it allows them to check that the questions have been set properly. What's useful getting their feedback, and later on the candidates' feedback, is to make sure you pay attention to the question reference. In the bottom left-hand corner, each screen should have a unique reference. The first bit is made up of a code that you can enter in the advanced settings for that test. And the second bit is the actual name of the question. So that gives you a unique ID for every single screen, every single question, that allows any comments from either experts or from candidates to be related right back to the actual screen they were looking at. Otherwise you tend to get sort of vague complaints, and it's very difficult to track things down. Now, multiple authors can connect at the same time to the same question, edit things, they'll see the changes on their screens. It's very good for that sort of thing. But don't forget that questions can be flagged, and you can leave notes. You just create a text area and make it hidden, so you can leave your comments on a screen without any fear that they're going to end up in a published version. And finally, the last thing that we'd suggest is do not set the exams so that candidates, when they finish, can step through all of the marked screens. Not if they're important exams, because what will happen, in our experience, is that somebody will step through all of the screens and screenshot them. And all of that effort you put into creating that content will be lost because it will be distributed freely amongst people who are, instead of really learning about the subject, they're just rote learning what the answers are to the questions.